use the properties of operations to multiply linear expressions. Tamara is building a square doghouse with side lengths 1 5/10 times the length of the boards used in construction. She decides to include a porch area that adds 2 feet to the overall length of the doghouse. Write a linear expression to represent the area of the floor and porch of the doghouse. What mathematical model can you use to understand the problem? Draw a diagram to represent the area of the porch and floor of the doghouse. This section represents the porch. The porch is 2 feet by 1 5/10 times x feet. This section represents the floor of the doghouse. The floor of the doghouse is 1 5/10 times x feet by 1 5/10 times x feet. You can add the two lengths and multiply by the width to find the total area.
Select your answer.
Equivalently, you can add the areas of the porch and the floor to find the total area. The area of the porch is 1 5/10 times x times 2. The area of the doghouse is 1 5/10 times x times 1 5/10 times x. Write an expression that represents the total area of the floor and porch of the doghouse. The area of a rectangle is equal to the length times the width. The length is 1 5/10 times x, and the width is the sum of 1 5/10 times x and 2. Use the distributive property to multiply the linear expressions. The expression 2 25/100 times x squared plus 3 times x represents the total area of the porch and floor of the doghouse. How does the diagram connect to the algebra? The algebra shows the sum of the areas of each section in the diagram.
Multiply the linear expressions.
Okay, so let's multiply. All right, so with this expression, we have the number and variable on the outside of the parentheses. So that shows us distributive property. So we need to do distributive property to evaluate. So we have 3x times 8, which would be 24x minus 3x times negative, well, not negative, minus 0.5. And so that would be 2.5x squared because there are two x's. And then that'll be it because we would combine like terms, but because this is square, we can't combine it. So that's as simplified as it can be. The next expression, we have 3/4 times x times negative x, and then 3/4 times x times negative 1/2. So we have 3/4 x squared, and that would be negative because of the negative in front of the x. And then we have negative 3/4 x times the 1/2. So that would be 3/8. And we keep the minus in front, and then we keep the x. So now we have this as our final expression for B. Now C, we are going to, we will view it as we're going to multiply everything. So we have 4 times 0.75, which would be 3x squared. And then you have to multiply 5 times 0.75. And that equals 3 75/100 x.
Multiply negative 5/7 times x and the quantity of 7/5 times x minus 28 times y.
Okay, so you see here they are multiplying using the distributive property here, like we did in the previous example when the number was on the outside. And you put your like terms together. So your constants, which are the fractions, and your variables together, and then you multiply those numbers. The 28y doesn't have a like term, so they separated the 5/7 x when they distributed it over here, put 20 over 1, and then multiplied. And then it simplifies to x negative x squared plus 20 times xy, because those multiply together, and it can be written this way as well. Alright, so we will use distributive property and multiply everything on the inside. Okay, so we have 1 and 9/10 times 3 and 7/10. That's going to be 7 and 3/100. C, B, because we have a C here and a B here, and we're multiplying it together, and it's going to be negative. And then we have 1 and 9/10 times 1, which is in front of the invisible 1 in front of C. So that's going to be 1, that's going to be a negative 1 and 9/10 C squared, because there are the two C's here. And we don't have any like terms to combine here. And it asks you to write it in two ways. The other way to write it would just be in, let me write it in the second way. So you could have written it as negative 1 9/10 C squared minus 7 and 3/300. Sorry about the zooming. Alright, so it's at 0, 3, C, B. And that's another way to write that. Let's look at B. Okay, now we distribute this way and multiply. So you have 3/4 times Z times 4W. And that would be 3 times Z times W plus 3/4 times 4/5 would be 3/5 times Z W. And we can leave it this way. And then another way to write it would just be the fraction in the big front and then this one in the back. That would be a second way to write that.
Multiply negative 3 and 2/10 times x times the quantity of 2 times x minus 4 and 2/10 minus 1 and 2/10 times x.
Okay, one way. You can distribute the negative 3 and 2/10 times x to each term, as we've been doing in all the previous triads that I've done. then another way is to combine like terms first. So in this way, inside the parentheses, they combined the like terms, the ones with variables, and then they solved it. And then last but not least, your final answer or product is this answer here. And again, the two different ways is just in a different order, but the same answer.
Multiply.
Let's multiply. So we have that distributive property, multiply everything, but one way showed us to combine like terms first. So I think I'm going to do that first. So let's do that. So we have these two here, the negative 5a and 1/3 a. And okay, so we're going to use distributive property. No, I said I didn't want to do that. We're going to combine like terms. So we have negative 5a plus 1/3 a. And we're just going to make this a fraction so we can add them together. And I need to have common denominators. So that's going to be, let's see, common denominator. We can do 3. So that'll be 15 over 3, negative 15 over 3 plus 1/3. And then that would be 16/3. Okay, so 16/3. I'm just going to continue writing to the side. So we have negative 2/5 a times 16/3. That's will be negative. Negative 16/3. Actually, because it's negative, it's actually going to be 14. Okay, 14/3 a minus 4. And then we use the distributive property. So now I'm going to multiply out this way. Then that's going to be 28 over 15 a squared minus 2/5 and 1/4, negative 18 over 5, and that'll be a. All right, let's do B. We have, let's combine the like terms. So negative 6.2 and 0.4 is going to be 5 and 8/10 G plus 8 times the negative 3 and 1/10 G. Right now we're going to distribute. So that would be times 3.1. That's 1798. And G squared, because we're multiplying distributive property. And then negative times negative is a positive, plus negative 3.1 times 8 is going to be negative 24 and 8/10 G.